Are there risks that we take with client-level services? Sure, we take risk. Is there better protection for the buyer? Sure, there's definitely better protection for the buyers because we are working for those buyers. We are helping them when we represent them to discover things about the property. Are the buyers better served? I believe you would say in the affirmative, yes, that they are better served. Buyers' agents have little or no boundaries in finding the right property when we are a buyer's agent. Now let's ask this. Is there a danger of conflict in dual agency? Only if it is undisclosed dual agency. We're talking about limited consensual dual agency. Now, from the very beginning, when we have that buyer agency agreement signed, the buyers know what is the limitation or what are the limitations. And with many of your companies, you will find that the limitations are a little different. So you must know what your company limitations are when you're doing limited consensual dual agency. It's exactly like it sounds, limited. So if we are doing limited consensual dual agency, and let's suppose with some companies, we have only the limitation of not sharing confidential information that we know about the buyer to the seller, not sharing confidential information that we might know about the seller to the buyer. That's the only limitation. With that only, if that's the only limitation that you have, then the buyer's agent still will be able to do a competitive market analysis, draw conclusions, help to formulate a price that they would suggest to the buyer client, that they make an offer for the property, and just to help them in every way to work for the buyer in the best light so that the buyer will be presented in the very best light to get the offer accepted first. If there's dual, or I should say if there's multiple offers there, we want to present that buyer client in the very best light, and therefore we have been able to advise them and advocate for them. That is one of the main levels of client services that we can do. One of the main benefits of client services that we can give is to be able to advise and to advocate and to negotiate for our clients. That is so important that we are able to do that. Now, think about this. With your client level services, we have fiduciary duties. And we've all talked about fiduciary duties as we talk about RECAD. We must adhere to those 6 fiduciary duties. We advocate, and we must advocate. That is a part of the services that we give to this client. And we advise them. We advise them with every bit of knowledge that we have. And it's really important for me, for you, to find out as much as we possibly can about the property, and also to find out as much as we can about the sellers when we're working for these buyers. And in that way, we will be able to advocate and advise in a much better way for these clients that we're working with. But then look at the other side. As a customer, we do not have the fiduciary duties. We cannot advocate for them. We cannot advise them. We're only acting as a facilitator. Now let's take a little example here and think about someone who is a customer of ours says, I would like to have a competitive market analysis on this house in this particular neighborhood. Can we give that to them when we're working as a transaction broker? Sure, we can, but we cannot interpret that competitive market analysis. If you think about it, The only thing that we can do as a transaction broker is to reveal the information that is made public, whether it's in multiple listing, whether it's something that's on the tax record, or whether it is something that is on a website, so that the buyers do see that particular website and they know that that is public information. But with a competitive market analysis, and if I'm working as an agent of that buyer client, then I'm going to be able to interpret. I'm going to be able to say, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, here's a house right down the street that has sold for $10,000 more than this one over 2 blocks down in the opposite direction. Now, I happen to know, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, that this one on the down the street to your right sold for $10,000 less, $10,000 more, because of the fact that it had a new kitchen, it had new Corian countertops, new appliances. This one down the street hadn't had anything done to it, and it needed totally updating. In fact, it still had the old avocado green shag carpeting in it that was put in many, many years ago. So you see, this is information that was not public information that I was being able to share with these buyers. And I was able to help them, to advise them, to advocate for them on the price or the offer of that we should make on the house because of interpreting that competitive market analysis. So the main difference there, with a customer, yes, you can do a competitive market analysis, but you would not be able to interpret. With a client, yes, you do interpret the competitive market analysis and advise and advocate for them in every way that you possibly can. Let's think about the different types of buyers that we are working with and have the opportunity to work with. We've got the first-time home buyers. Many are very, very knowledgeable, and some are very dependent upon a professional licensee. What's the difference? Well, the main difference is that some of them are actually taking advantage of all the multitude of information that is available to them on different websites. And they're coming to us very, very knowledgeable, whereas some are not coming to us with any kind of knowledge, and they're totally dependent on you to advise them. So how are we going to discover what level are they? We've got to ask a lot of questions, good probing, qualifying questions, and that will be very essential to us to be able to find out how we need to help them. Another type of buyer would be the house changers. Those that's moving up to a larger house, maybe it's a young family, and they have just had their third or their fourth child, and 3 bedrooms is not large enough for them anymore. So they need to move up to a 4 or a 5 bedroom house for that growing family. Or maybe some of them are moving down or want to move down to a smaller home. They're wanting less yard work. They're wanting less upkeep. So they're willing to give up their big house in order to move into a smaller house that has less yard work to do and also less housework to do. Another type of buyer would be the investors. There's a lot of different people that would fall into this category. You might find a lot of the investors that are buying to renovate or repair, and they want to turn around after they have renovated or repaired the house and sell the house. Some of them are going to turn around and keep the property and rent it. These investors usually will tell you right up front, we don't pay retail price. We only pay wholesale prices because we have got to do all of this renovation, and we've got to have some margin in there because we're going to hold on to the house for a while we're doing all the repair work and making interest payments to the bank maybe on the money that they're borrowing to do the renovation and the money that they borrowed to buy the property. So these types of buyers sometimes will be very sophisticated buyers. They don't need much help from us. They very seldom will sign the buyer agency agreement, but they want you to work as a transaction broker. Now, other kind of investors might be those people buying a second home at the beach or in the mountains. And in some cases, you're going to find people that have a home in your local city, and they'll also be buying one at the beach and one in the mountains. They're thinking long term, not only about investments, about the possibility that they might want to sell their house in your local area and then move to the beach or move to the mountains and let that be their permanent home after a while. So they have some long-range goals in those cases. Think about other types of investors too. Could be someone that is buying in a college town, buying a property for one of their family members to live in while they're going to school. And it could be that they are buying a house just as a rental house. Maybe there is not a family member that's going to school in that college town, but they see the golden opportunity of buying and rental properties. And of course, there are local people that are buying in their local area too, and renting out property, because it is good investment. Another type of buyer would be the out-of-area buyers. Now, a lot of people like to work with out-of-towners because we know that most of the time they have to buy. These might be people being transferred in, or people changing jobs, people wanting to retire so that they would be close to their family. And many times they're buying smaller garden homes. I think that's one reason that you find so many smaller garden homes being so popular. It could be young professionals furthering their education, and they're going to be in the city for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years while they're furthering their education. They don't want to rent, so they're buying in the area for this period of time that they're going to be here, knowing that it's not going to be permanent, but that they can turn around and keep that as an investment property, or that they will be able to go ahead and make sure that they sell the property and move on to the other city where they'll be going. Out-of-area buyers, though, are great ones to work with. And a lot of times it takes on a lot of extra duties that you wouldn't think about with in-town buyers. Sometimes you have got to really sell them on the city. There may be a spouse that has been transferred in, but the spouse does not want to move at all because maybe they're living close to family. They've never lived any place other than where they're living right now. And so moving to your area is just not one of the desires that they have in their heart. They just want to stay put. But when we find someone like that, then we've got to do a good selling job on selling them on wanting to move to your location. And how are we going to do that? Well, first of all, we've got to gather as much information about these out-of-towners as we possibly can. Find out what are their needs, what are their wants, and then we will be able to better serve them. Making hotel reservations for them, in their name, of course, is one of the services that we could offer. Picking them up at the airport, carrying them to their hotel, that would be a nice gesture. Having a little fruit basket in the room when they arrive at the hotel. It really just says how friendly you are, how professional you are, how you want to help them in making this transition. Transitions are not easy for people, and particularly those that really do not want to come to the area. It's going to be very hard for children. Having coloring books for the smaller children that might be a coloring book that you can secure about new friends at your new home site, such as that. Little things like that mean so much, and it builds that rapport and makes these buyers really want to work with you. But I think one of the big advantages is that we do know that they have got to buy in a limited time as a general rule. And it won't be anything that will be spread out over a period of months like it is when we're dealing with people in our local area, local buyers that are just hoping to sell and buy a house within the next 6 months or the next year. Out-of-town areas or out-of-area buyers are really very interesting to work with. And I would challenge you, if you have not worked with one of them before, to find that those out-of-area buyers that you can work with, and it will be a delightful experience for you. You will enjoy very much. Selling your city, having some pride in your city and selling your city, even taking them on a little tour of the city to show them some of the cultural places that they will want to visit. Taking them just on maybe a 30 or 45 minute or an hour tour of the city and showing them different things that would make them want to move to our area, just make them want to see that, yes, you know, this can be a good move for me after all, even though I had a very negative attitude toward moving. So you see, you have a big job right there.